ජීවිතේ වැඩිපුර ලැබෙන හොඳම දේවල් විඳින්න. දැන් SLT broadband වෙතින් 75% දක්වා වැඩිපුර data සතුට ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම්.
Ugly scenes. Alleged no ball leads to overzealous celebrations by the Bangladeshi players. Dressing room in pieces.
Then I'm not too sure that you actually need to give notice.
I didn't see umpire calling one bouncer. That's up to the umpires.
I need to remain calm, so I'll be more careful from the next time.
I wish Shakib would have used that opportunity at the post-match presentation.
Sticking up for the country. Global Sri Lankan Forum continues to respond to allegations in Geneva.
The actions of the Human Rights Council, instead of strengthening our domestic mechanisms, are undermining them. Is this the objective of the Council, to undermine Sri Lanka's ability to protect its people's human rights, thus violating the UN Charter?
Could it be? Is Wahhabism on the rise in Sri Lanka? An Indian report gives in-depth analysis while Sri Lanka activists react.
There is a rise, and this is what analysts in Sri Lanka have been telling us.
One has to be careful to see that there are regional and international players.
The argument at the root is not one that I agree with at all.
Special High Courts. Former Defence Secretary says democratic institutions are used to exact political revenge. Tit for tat. Russia expels 23 British diplomats in retaliation. Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. Now, Sri Lanka missed out on the chance to make it to the final of the Nidahas Trophy Tri-Nation Series last evening as Bangladesh chased down the target set by the home side with 1 ball to spare. The match, however, will forever be remembered for all the wrong reasons, as the conduct of the Bangladeshi players towards the end of the match seems to be far from gentlemanly. One of the reserves of the visiting team even encroached the fields and had words with Sri Lankan captain Tissara Perera, and later the matter escalated as far as their batsmen being called off the field. Today, however, the International Cricket Council fined both Bangladesh captain Shakib Al Hasan and the reserve player in question 25% of their match fee and gave 1 demerit point.
With the score locked on 148 for 7 in the last over, came the sequence of the events for which the match will be remembered forever. Mustafizur Rahman was run out in the second ball of the last over, and allegedly Mahmudullah was of the view that it should have been called a no ball and therefore a run should be added to the score, upon which the umpire gave a no ball.
Well, he's gone.
This was disputed by the Sri Lankans, saying that the umpire failed to signal that the permitted number of deliveries over the shoulder has been delivered and therefore a no ball could not be called. This led to the umpire reversing the decision, which led to the altercation. As the events unfolded, a substitute of Bangladesh, who was within the field carrying drinks, had words with Sri Lankan captain Tissara Perera. To have substitute players who are not a part of the games encroach the field of play and to engage the opposition captain violates convention and also goes against the game's gentlemanly image. As the situation with the substitute player escalated, instead of bringing calm to the situation, Bangladesh captain Shakib Al Hasan called his batsmen off the field. The game eventually resumed and Mahmudullah went on to score a 6 in the penultimate delivery to send Bangladesh into the final. After ugly scenes marred what would have been a good contest of cricket, Bangladesh captain vowed to keep his emotions in check.
So many things that happen that shouldn't happen. I need to remain calm. First of all, yes, I was overjoyed. I'll be more careful from the next time.
Sri Lankan player Kusal Janit Perera too expressed his views on the root of the unpleasantness, the no ball.
I didn't see umpire calling one bouncer. That's up to the umpires.
Although some match commentators were critical of the Bangladeshi players' conduct, others were more diplomatic.
I'm glad there are enough people who kept their cool out there. Emotions run high. I wish Shakib would have used that opportunity at the post-match presentations to apologize.
Cobra dance
I think the Cobra dance went too far and the situation heated up. They did that step after every wicket. I don't think it's appropriate to do so.
Grace in victory as well as in defeat is widely promoted as a fundamental of sporting conduct. That, however, too was abandoned by the Bangladesh team as they inflicted damages to their dressing room in overzealous celebration. They had left their dressing room in a pitiful state with footage emerging of broken glass doors. Cricketing sources, however, contradicted this, saying that the door was damaged when a Bengali player opened it during their celebrations and that Bangladesh cricket management has expressed willingness to bear the cost for repairs. With yesterday's events at the R. Premadasa Stadium being a far cry from a resplendent example for building cricketers both on and off the field, First at 9 contacted former Sri Lankan cricketer Siddharth Vettamuni over the matter, with the former batting maestro expressing some interesting views on the alleged no-ball incident.
There wasn't clarity on television as to exactly what happened. Maybe the second bouncer was a no-ball. Unfortunately, it was difficult to see. Again, I'm not too sure that you actually need to give notice. Maybe the umpire can still call if it's a no-ball. The second ball was definitely, I felt it was a no-ball. In general, there was some poor behavior during that last period, and I don't think it was quite right.
Social media was also buzzing with pundits, current players and fans condemning the conduct of Bangladeshi players and the drama that unfolded in R. Premadasa Stadium. First at 9 stepped to the streets to get the views of the public on yesterday's deplorable manifestations.
Normally, when we are playing an international game, they have to obey the relevant rules and regulations. That is the comment I have to give.
I'm very disappointed that we lost the game, but I thought it was more ugly to witness an event, especially an overseas team coming over and behaving like this. I haven't really gone into it, but if they have done, the ICC should take serious action. That's not accepted in a gentleman's game.
The incident in itself was a little unfortunate because in a game, emotions flare up. They tend to flare up. I was really proud of the way Sri Lankans held themselves back. Win and loss, that happens in a game. But how the emotions were controlled by the team players, I think it's something to be proud of. But I'm hoping more so that the spirit of the game prevails, that the Bangladesh players understand their mistake, they apologize. Being a captain of a side, he should have been a little more responsible in that standpoint. Fully well knowing the repercussions of calling a team back, you're disqualified.
Shakib Hassan did overreact to what happened yesterday. Finally got what he expected and deserved, but his overreaction at that time was a little uncalled for. It's been a gentleman's game probably 80 years back, but of late it's no longer that. It's all-out war. Sri Lankans were very composed, especially towards the end when they were getting off the field.
Speaking to other Derana, President of Sri Lanka Cricket Tilanga Sumatipala stated that a complaint has been lodged at the International Cricket Council over the misconduct of the Bangladesh players during the match. He further stated that a letter has been sent to the Bangladesh Cricket Board requesting immediate action regarding the behaviour of their players. In the meantime, the International Cricket Council today fined Bangladesh captain Shakib Al Hasan and reserve player Nurul Hasan 25% of their match fees, and also gave 1 demerit point for breaching level 1 of the ICC Code of Conduct in separate incidents during yesterday's match. Shakib was found to have breached Article 1 of 2.1 of the ICC Code of Conduct for players and player support personnel, which relates to conduct that is contrary to the spirit of the game, while Nurul was found guilty of violating Article 2 of 2.1, which deals with conduct that brings game into dispute. Both Shakib and Nurul pleaded guilty this morning to the offences. Later in the day, the Bangladesh Cricket Board issued a statement accepting that the conduct of their players overstepped the mark and conceded that both were rightfully penalised. Yet, the question arises, is a 25% fine of the match fee sufficient to curb unpleasant and unsportsmanlike conduct?
Secretary of Global Sri Lanka Forum in Switzerland, Nimalalina Patabandi says that establishing a hybrid court in Sri Lanka will undermine the domestic judicial system. She was speaking at the 37th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council on non-governmental organizations. The general debate of human rights bodies and mechanisms were taken up at Friday's sessions of the 37th regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council.
The actions of the Human Rights Council, instead of strengthening our domestic mechanisms, are undermining them. Should a hybrid court be established in Sri Lanka, as demanded by the US-led Resolution 30/1, it will severely undermine our well-established domestic judicial system, as has happened elsewhere, particularly in Africa. Is this the objective of the Council, to undermine Sri Lanka's ability to protect its people's human rights, thus violating the UN Charter? My organization calls upon this Council to urgently revisit the precedent-setting Resolution 30/1, which, if implemented, will further undermine the multilateral human rights system established to assist, not replace, states.
They claim that allegations of sexual violence committed against women can be addressed through the transitional justice mechanisms within Sri Lanka. How can this be possible? I question the commitment of the Sri Lankan government to the Resolution 30/1. I question the commitment of the Australian government to the Refugee Convention. We urge the Council to scrutinise Australia's fast-track assessment of protection claims. We also urge the international community to increase the pressure on Sri Lanka to promote human rights, accountability and reconciliation. We call upon all nations represented here to implement measures if the Sri Lankan government continues to fail in its commitment and continues to destroy the lives of Tamil people.
According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sri Lanka's Universal Periodic Review Report under the third cycle of the UPR will be adopted at the 37th session of the Council on Monday, the 19th of March. During this session, Sri Lanka will be represented by Permanent Representative to the UN in Geneva, Ravinada Aryasinghe. Following the 28th session of the Universal Periodic Review Working Group that convened from the 6th to 17th of November last year, the Resolution 34/1 was adopted on the 23rd of March the same year. Following which the Council requested the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to continue to assess progress on implementation of its recommendations and other relevant processes related to reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka, and to present a written update to the Human Rights Council at its 37th session, which is currently underway. Accordingly, as requested by the Council, the Office of the Human Rights High Commissioner will present a written update to the Council on the 21st of March. Sri Lanka will be represented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tilak Marapana, and the Minister of Special Assignment, Dr. Sara Tamunugama, during this session. A BMW i8 model car collided with two motor vehicles around 6 this morning before falling into the Derana Oya close to the Talawatugoda junction. According to the police media spokesperson's office, the driver of the vehicle absconded following the incident. They added that the luxury vehicle was speeding, however no one is reported injured. The police also suspect the driver may have been under the influence of alcohol. Furthermore, it was reported that the vehicle was unregistered. This evening, however, a representative of a company claiming to bear the ownership of the vehicle reported to the Talangama police station. Further investigations are being conducted into the incident. The former Defence Secretary says that he will decide whether to take up political leadership when the time comes. He said this following a ceremony in Colombo yesterday which saw the parliamentarian Vandana Gunawardene receive his doctorate. Parliamentarian of the UPFA, Vandana Gunawardene, yesterday received a doctorate for his thesis, a study on history of China-Sri Lanka economic and commerce-centric relationship 1952 to 2014 from the University of International Relations in Beijing at the BMICH. The ceremony was held under the patronage of the Vice-Chancellor of the University of International Relations in Beijing, Jia Wenjian. A number of politicians, including former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, graced the occasion.
There will be a new mayoress and she will have to act. We did all this with great dedication, and when that's lost, the situation becomes like this. Such things make evident that democratic institutions are used in political agendas to exact political revenge. There is no such thing as preparation. It has to be visited when the time comes. There are other ways to contribute to the country, whether it's through politics or not. That has to be done somehow. It's completely unconstitutional. For that, the constitution has to be amended, and the ministers can't make such changes on whims. In this scenario, the complainant, the Attorney General, decides which cases are filed in which court. I think it is wrong to use courts for political revenge. As far as I know, there are no provisions within the Constitution for it. When we discussed it in Cabinet and put it to the Attorney General, he gave a 29-page report saying that under the 1978 Constitution of the Second Republic of Sri Lanka, the Parliament does not have the power to establish such special courts.
Devotees selected for the program Dama Vandana, organised by FM Derana under its fourth phase, reached the Vihari Rock yesterday. There the devotees got the chance to witness the location where the first Buddhist council converged following the Parinibbana, the Lord Buddha's passing, and the entry of the supreme Nibbana of Gautama Buddha. Their next destination was the Nalanda Bhikkhu University, and afterwards they visited the location where the Lord Buddha left a 500-strong convoy of bullock carts of Prince Vidubhastran with the enlightened one's powers. The fifth phase of the FM Derana Dama Vandana is now in progress. State Minister T.B. Ekanayake, representing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, says that he signed the no-confidence motion that will be brought against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe by the joint opposition. Several other politicians too expressed views on the due no-confidence motion.
We'll take a decision when the Parliament convenes. The public mandate was against the government during the recent election. I see this as an opportunity to check if it is the same with the Parliament. We believe that we will be able to hand over the no-confidence motion to the Speaker with the signatures of a lot of parties apart from the 5 parties representing the joint opposition. How can they win? There are only 58 or 48 in the joint opposition. 15 parliamentarians of the UNP have vowed to support the no-confidence motion. 5 more are having discussions. As representatives of the people, we are ready to punish those who did wrong. We are ready to defeat it the very moment it is tabled in Parliament. If a no-confidence motion is brought when UNP loses elections, an impeachment should be brought when votes for the president decreases to 1.1 million. I will take the best decision thinking of the party I represent. We agree with 99% of what people think. The first thing is Wickremesinghe should be chased away from his position. I think our party will assist it. This no-confidence motion is very strong. I think many from the UNP will assist it as well.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
What I said was...
Welcome back to the news. Now in focus tonight, we have a recent report filed by India's World is One News, or WION, which claims that while Sinhalese intolerance is on the rise in Sri Lanka, the root cause for the distrust of Muslims in Sri Lanka lies in the alarming spread of Wahhabism. It states that most of the international media, especially Middle Eastern concerns, are painting exaggerated pictures of bloodthirsty Sinhalese and victimized Muslims. But WION is discovering a slightly different picture. We too at Derana spoke to Sri Lankan analysts for their comments on this report, widely circulating on social media.
The media report, filed by Padma Rao for India's World is One News, claims that Saudi Arabia reportedly trained and has been dispatching English-speaking Wahhabi speakers around the world, and South Asia is the most attractive region since it is inclusive of a huge Muslim community.
There's an uneasy pall of calm over the east coast and the central mountains of Sri Lanka.
It states that most of the international media are painting exaggerated pictures of bloodthirsty Sinhalese and victimized Muslims, but they discovered a slightly different picture.
Religions, and what we're discovering paints a slightly different picture. It is true that Sinhalese intolerance is on the rise, and this time it's not Sri Lanka's Tamils who are the targets, but the country's nearly 2 million Muslims.
The report adds that there can be no justification for violence, but one must examine the root cause of the distrust of Muslims in Sri Lanka since 2009.
And that root cause lies in the alarming spread of Wahhabism among one of the most tolerant and peaceful Muslim communities in the world, that of Sri Lanka.
It goes on to say that some of the controversial speakers trained and dispatched by Saudi Arabia reportedly include Ismail Menk, Zakir Naik and Tariq Jamil. Menk has been banned in the United Kingdom and Singapore, while Zakir Naik is in India's most wanted list.
Analysts say that Sinhalese intolerance is on the rise primarily because of the changes noticed in traditionally tolerant Muslim neighbours.
According to Rao's report, there are 749 madrasas in Sri Lanka and one Islamic university, moreover claiming that 90% of Sri Lanka's mosques are in the clutches of Wahhabi preachers and that 33 Sri Lankan Muslims are reported to have joined Islamic State.
There is a rise, and this is what analysts in Sri Lanka have been telling us.
However, when contacted for their views, Sri Lankan experts had this to say on the media report.
The argument that at the root of anti-Muslim violence in this country is the rise of Wahhabism in the Muslim community is not one that I agree with at all. I think this argument is used quite often by sympathizers and apologists of the intolerance, indeed, sadly, even of the violence, to detract from what the real causes are. No doubt, an increase in Wahhabism fuels the Islamophobia that we have in the country. But I think if one looks at the violence, the main reasons are largely economic, which are then fueled, exacerbated, and reinforced by various cultural and religious arguments of one kind or another. Perhaps it is very much the fear of the unknown, the Goebbelsian type of propaganda about this country fast becoming a Muslim majority country, the ridiculous arguments about infertility pills and all of that suggest that there is a very organized group of people who are concerned with a multi-ethnic, multi-religious Sri Lanka. The government of the day needs to give out a vision of this Sri Lanka as being multi-ethnic and multi-religious and will be protected and defended as such, and that the full force of the law will be brought to bear upon them without fear or favor. The rise of Wahhabism within the Muslim community in this country is something that first and foremost needs to be dealt with from within the Muslim community. And it is indeed incumbent on them to deal with any signs of extremism, as it is indeed incumbent on any religious or ethnic community within this country to do likewise. We mustn't detract from the cardinal fundamental question: do we or do we not want a multi-religious and multi-ethnic Sri Lanka? And are we not going to bring the full force of the law of the land to bear on those who do not want it? We need to act fast and fearlessly.
One has to be careful to see that there are regional and international players with international and regional agendas try to create division, diversions of the real cause and the real problem amongst Sri Lankans. Of course, we need to address the root cause, but to exaggerate that Sri Lankan Muslims is somewhere close to any sort of insurgency is absolute rubbish and nonsense. In the meantime, Sri Lankan's Muslim has a duty to resurrect their Sri Lankan culture, Muslim subculture which we have been inheriting, because alienating our own culture during the last few years played into the hands of extremists who are hell-bent on creating problems for the Muslims. We need not to go after anybody else's culture. Culture is different, ethnicity, religion is different. Our nationality is Sri Lankan. Having said so, some of the recent reports painting a very bleak picture about certain well-known Islamic priests who have come to Sri Lanka probably once a year is absolutely no basis at all. They never ever advocate any sorts of hardlining. Some of the well-known international secret services and intelligence agencies are in work in Sri Lanka. Some of the elections, they have privately and also publicly proclaimed they were involved in certain regime changes which have taken place in Sri Lanka. So they are hell-bent on create division between the communities in Sri Lanka so that instability of the region and instability of the country, we should not play into this agenda.
Let's take a look at other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
People in Holroot Estate in the area of Talawakele face great difficulties due to the chaos caused by a troop of monkeys which had come to the area a few months ago. It is reported that the monkeys had attacked a few people and damaged properties. A father of 2 children lost his life in an elephant attack in the area of Suryavava in Hambantota yesterday. The elephant had been moving in the area for a few days and it had caused damages to properties as well. A 48-year-old businessman who was about to fly to Dubai on flight UL225 yesterday was apprehended by customs officials at the Bandaranaike International Airport while attempting to smuggle 25.4 kilograms of Walla Patta, also known as Jaranobes Walla, valued at over 1.4 million rupees. The goods were seized and the suspect was released with a fine of 100,000 rupees.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Russia today expelled 23 British diplomats in a retaliatory move over British accusations that the Kremlin orchestrated a nerve toxin attack on a former Russian double agent and his daughter in southern England. The move had been largely expected, with Russia earlier saying that countermeasures to the expulsion of their diplomats in UK would be taken soon. Escalating a crisis in relations, Russia said it was also shutting down the activities of the British Council, which fosters cultural links between the two countries, and withdrawing agreement for Britain to operate a consulate general in St. Petersburg. The Russian Foreign Ministry said it was giving the 23 British diplomats 1 week to leave the country. The move followed Britain's decision on Thursday to expel 23 Russian diplomats over the attack in the English city of Salisbury, which left former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia Skripal critically ill in hospital. The ministry said Moscow's measures were a response to what it called Britain's provocative actions and groundless accusations. It had warned London it stood ready to take further measures in the event of more unfriendly steps. Relations between London and Moscow have crashed to a post-Cold War low over the attack, the first known offensive use of a nerve agent in Europe since World War II. In the meantime, British Ambassador to Russia Laurie Bristow, after a meeting at the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, spoke to media today, during which the expulsion of British diplomats were conveyed.
We gave Russia the opportunity to explain how the material got to Salisbury, and we asked Russia to declare that material, that capability, to the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Russia did neither, therefore we announced certain steps. Russia today has informed me of the steps that Russia will be taking in response to that.
Let's take a look at other emerging stories from across the world. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions fired the former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe yesterday, days before he could retire with pension rights. It prompted McCabe to say he's being targeted because he's a crucial witness into whether President Donald Trump tried to obstruct the Russia investigation. Sessions in a statement said that he felt justified in firing McCabe after the Justice Department's internal watchdog found he leaked information to reports and misled investigators about his actions. China's largely rubber-stamped parliament today unanimously re-elected Xi Jinping as the country's president, with no votes cast against him. The legislature is packed with delegates loyal to the ruling Communist Party, meaning Xi's re-election was never in doubt. Category 2 strength Cyclone Marcos caused chaos in Australia's North Territory, with wind speeds of 130 km per hour over the harbour and heavy rains when it made landfall today. Video shared with Reuters showed uprooted trees rolling down a street and strong winds and heavy rains lashing Darwin. Australia signed an agreement. The 113th lovers' quarrel between Richmond College and Mahinda College in Gaul and the 101st Hill Country Battle of the Blues between St Anthony's and Trinity Colleges in Kandy today ended in a draw.
Being invited to bat first, Richmond College scored 170 all-out in their first innings yesterday. Pasan Petangoda clinched 4 wickets for Mahinda College, giving 46 runs away. Resuming on 70 for the loss of 3, Mahinda College went on to score 48 more runs, extending their total to 118 all out. Launching their second innings, Richmond College declared on 150 for the loss of 4 wickets. And in the other match, being invited to bat first, St Anthony's College wrapped up their first innings for a total of 115 yesterday. Resuming their innings at 150 for 5, Trinity College added 46 more runs to their score, finishing on 196 all out. Launching their second innings, St Anthony's College could only score 62 for the loss of 2 wickets at the end of the day's play.
Let's now cross over to Shalina Fernando at the other Derana Weather Centre with their forecast first evening edition.
සෙම් ප්‍රතිශාවක් හැදීගෙන එනකොටම නිසක ප්‍රතිකාරය කලින්ම සමහන්.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow will range between 20 and 31 degrees Celsius, with the lowest yet again expected in the Central Hills. We're looking at the map. A low pressure zone will form from the east of the island and will gradually disappear. Well, in the areas of Jaffna, Mannar, Vaunia and Anuradhapura will experience continuous sunshine. But that, however, will not be the same case in the areas of Galle, Matara, Colombo as well as Hambantota, as they can expect some showers and thunder showers. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
That's it from the First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, we'd like to leave you with visuals of the Sri Lanka Print 2018 exhibition, which is currently underway at the SLECC in Colombo. The print industry has grown in stature since its establishment in 1956 and has become one of the most important industries in the world. Thank you for watching and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.